Be true to yourself, respect your fellow man, and just be everything you can be. If you're not going to be a star in whatever field you choose, it doesn't matter. You're giving your best.
Welcome back to Mulligan Brothers. Today's video, as always, was sponsored by HUEL. I'm drinking HUEL Black Edition, which has 26 vitamins and minerals, 35 grams of protein and slow release carbs to make sure that I can stay satiated and proteined up whilst I make these documentaries. If you want to find out more about these, go to the link in the description. I'll talk about them a little bit later on in the video. You've probably heard many metaphors in boxing that apply to life. I personally love them, especially fighting. I think life at times is a bit of a fight. Have you got any favourites for metaphors in boxing that apply to life?
I think one of the things for me is showing respect to your fellow man. Right? If you do that, if you've got that as your kind of outer core, then I think it makes it easier for you, even when the brickbats start to come and people maybe have a go at you for whatever reason. I think if you're true to yourself, and this is what my dad always told, be true to yourself. Now, I had to kind of deploy that kind of saying on a number of occasions when I was a journalist, when I would have difficulties with certain people, and I would have to be true to myself, even if it meant, and I've seen journalists, for example, having to take all kinds of insults and kind of offensive behaviour to them because of what they've written or what they've said and so on. I was thinking particularly about from football managers. That's the number one thing that comes to me. And they would buckle, and they would think, number one, they would think, well, I've got to go along with this, and because it's my job. I never took that view. I took the view, you're not going to speak to me like that. And if it costs me my job, and if I go back and I've told my head of news, I've come away without an interview because the guy was insulting and I had a go at him, then I would hope my head of news would back me. And that's not always the case. It happened. And sometimes you look for support and you get it, sometimes you don't. But so the thing I think about is, if you respect your fellow man, then you're going down the right road, right? And I think what you've got to recognize is that in all walks of life, there are people less fortunate than you, right? And you've got to remember that. And I think the worst thing we can do sometimes is judge people on their appearance, judge people on what they say or what they wear or what they've done without actually knowing them, right? And I think that's the big thing with social media now. You read something, is it true or is it false? For lots of people, who cares? It's on social media, it must be true. And so they pitch in with their view. And sometimes that can be really unfair and hurtful to the recipient of these insults. And you've got to think, well, hang on a second. These might be decent people. So my dad always taught me, be true to yourself, respect your fellow man, and just be everything you can be. And if you're not going to be a star in whatever field you choose, it doesn't matter. You're giving your best. Give your best every time if you can, and never let up on your values in life. The values that he taught me remain with me today, and I try to pass them down to my kids. Not by sitting them down and actually saying, right, this is value number one, you'll do this, value number, just by example. Lead by example, and if you can do that, then I think you're doing a decent job.
If you're like me and millions of other people, you probably lead a busy life, and that's where this stuff comes in absolutely clutch. I know that I just scoop, shake and go, and I'm ready for my day. There are other companies that are trying to do what HUEL is trying to do, but they use cheap ingredients. Sometimes it requires you to take 15 pills or preparing food trusting supplements with subpar ingredients, and also taking 15 pills a day is just something that we don't all want to do. That's where HUEL makes health possible. Black Edition has 40 grams of protein in, 26 vitamins and minerals, and every single ingredient inside this has been carefully selected by HUEL's expert team. So you know you're getting the good stuff. Don't just take my word for it. Millions of other people around the world are now using HUEL as part of their daily routine. People like Idris Elba, Stephen Bartlett from the Diary of a CEO, Hardest Geezer, the man who ran the entire length of Africa, was using this stuff. If you want to join the movement, go to the link down below where you can get a free t-shirt, a free shaker, and also if you subscribe to HUEL, you can get 10% off every single order. This is next freaking level. Go get some.
Something that was said to me all the time, you know, actions speak louder than words. Yeah. And it's so true. You know, I spoke to you about inspire change. Inspire change to me is mainly through action. You know, if somebody sees you doing something, and we've actually had it today a couple of times, I think, where people are seeing you boxing and just the act, you know, they might be in the distance watching, but that's more inspiring. You know, it's seeing that you actually practice what you preach, you actually do that, I think is a huge thing. Was there other lessons that came through that stood out to you that you learned through boxing, but then later applied into your life?
I think one of the big things for me is moderation. And so growing up, I spoke before about, we went to Donegal, I was a kid, we boxed and I saw some eye-opening, jaw-dropping things as a kid growing up. One of which was a guy called Willie Bannon, who was in the team of boxers who went with him. He was a coal man, right? Now he would carry, I don't know what the equivalent is, 8 stone of coal up flights of stairs every day. He was a strong guy, right? And I'm thinking about the way I put it is he would carry Benny Lynch on his back up these stairs. Benny Lynch was a great first world champion that Scotland produced, and died at the age of 33 through alcoholism. And that's another story which boxing has just scooped up, you know, over and over again. You think, are these people ever going to learn, you know? However, Willie Bannon went on the trip, two of the trips to Donegal, and he asked permission with the coach. We didn't call them coaches in those days, they were trainers. A lovely man who worked on the building sites, a man called Harry McLean. He was a booth boxer. He boxed in the fairgrounds, that kind of thing. And boxed in, you know, in small halls, and he was well down the bill. But he was a lovable man. Harry was, can we go to Glasgow? They said to my dad, earlier in the day and meet up with you in Glasgow. We were traveling from Dundee, and we were leaving on this so-called ship from the Brumallow Quay in Glasgow across to Belfast, overnight crossing. People are hanging over the side being sick, and it was horrendous. And so my dad said, okay, you can go early, because they said they had to meet somebody, but you must not miss this boat, right? You're finished. If you miss the boat, you're finished. So we're all waiting on the boat, still no sign of them. And then the order came for the gangplank to be pulled up. That the sailing was about to happen, and my dad was tearing his hair out. And then suddenly, in the distance, they could see 2 men staggering towards the boat. This is kind of evening time. And it was Willie Bannon and Harry McLean, and they were clearly drunk. Oh, put the gangplank down again. So they put the gangplank, and they walked up the gangplank, got them. Well, my dad was furious, right? Especially because they'd been drunk. So he put them to bed in bunk beds in this communal area. It was enormous, and you could smell the blooming cattle underneath who were being shipped across to Denmark to be slaughtered or whatever was happening to them. And then Bannon goes on, and he was an electrifying character in the ring. He was a southpaw, he was a light heavyweight, but he was probably just a heavy middleweight. Not a big guy, he's probably about 5'9.5". Powerful. He was a southpaw who could knock out with his lead hand, and it was a swing. And so Bannon he had this culture of drinking and training and knocking people out. So one night we were staying in a bed and breakfast in the wilds of Donegal. I mean, there's not a thing in sight for miles and miles. You can see kind of the lights in the distance of little farmhouses on the hills and so on. We were staying in this place. And somebody, I don't know who it was, alerted my dad here's another worry for you, by the way. Willie Bannon's missing. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and what do you mean he's missing? And yeah, not only that, there's a ham that was in the fridge, which the landlady has identified as going to be for lunch tomorrow. That's missing as well. So they muster the boxers, not me, because I was too young, I was 10. They muster the boxers and they send out search parties. Find Willie Bannon. So they went, I mean, where do you find? It's mountains, it's lakes, it's countryside, it's peat bogs. These guys are walking. And so it was the summertime, so I guess dawn was beginning to happen at 4 o'clock in the morning. And there on the hill, heading towards them, was a figure on a donkey. And the donkey was just slowly going along like this. And they go to meet the donkey, and it's Willie Bannon, drunk. He'd been drinking poitín, the illicit whiskey made in these little kind of houses and cottages all over Ireland, but particularly in Donegal. And he met some guy, nobody ever found out who, some farmer who said, come home and have some poitín. Well, they were on the poitín for hours and hours and hours. And Bannon was totally kind of out of his face with this drink. So that was about 3 o'clock in the morning. Come 9 o'clock that night, he knocked out a local guy who was about 6'4", a huge guy who was a decent enough boxer, but Bannon used to take these left jabs in the face and all kinds of punches in the face, and he would give that little grimace, as if to say, you're not hurting me. And then wang, it would come. And he would see guys falling flat on their faces. He won a bronze medal at the 1958 British Empire and Commonwealth Games, not just the Commonwealth Games. And the Duke of Edinburgh put his medal on, the bronze medal, and he said to Bannon, who was a big star on TV by then, by the way, but Harry Carpenter and the BBC guys always used to insist to get Bannon on the show when they were doing their live productions. And the Duke of Edinburgh said, I've seen you on TV. And Bannon said, I've seen you too. That was it. That was all he could think to say. It's never too late. People have often asked me, how can you be so fast and how can you do that at 78? I do not know how to pull back. If I go into the gym, I like to do my skipping, shadow boxing, punching the bag. You could reduce the chance of you dying early by between 35 and 42%. So why wouldn't you do it?